Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films, and today we're going to talk about a Thanksgiving movie. And it's not going to be Thanksgiving because I already did a review on that very awesome 2023 slasher film. And also, I did a review on Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which is probably most people's favorite Thanksgiving film. But I've picked three family dramas with different flavors to talk about. Now, I've already done two of them. The first one I did was Humans, a 2015 Thanksgiving film that takes place in Chinatown, Manhattan, in a rundown apartment where a family gathers to have Thanksgiving. And this one is more of a psychological drama, but it's kind of slow moving. And then the second one I did was this Home for the Holidays, which is the holiday is not the holidays like all the holidays. It really is just Thanksgiving in this film, but this one is a comedy drama starring Holly Hunter, directed by Jodie Foster, and it's a pretty entertaining movie. But today we're talking about the third of these family dramas, and this one is the most devastating. And this family, with the exception of the characters in the film Thanksgiving, have the worst Thanksgiving than any of the other characters. And we're talking about The Ice Storm. This was directed by Ang Lee. Now, Ang Lee directed Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which is a very awesome martial arts film. When they're flying around and they're doing they're doing the moves in the air. They fly through the air on strings. It's pretty awesome. But this is a family drama. He's directed other dramas like Brokeback Mountain. The Ice Storm stars Kevin Kline, and it's really an ensemble cast. Kevin Kline does get billing above the title in the opening credits, but it's really an ensemble film about two families during a Thanksgiving holiday in 1973. Now, Ang Lee does a terrific job of capturing the feel of 1973, and the set design here in these houses, it looks very 70s to me. Now, I grew up in the 80s as a kid, but there's a lot of that stuff from the 70s was still kind of around at the beginning of the 80s. And it also, from looking at pictures from not too far before that, so all these locations look they scream 70s. They do a terrific job with the set direction. So this film has a bit of a devastating ending, which I'm eventually going to talk about during this review, because I'm going to find it hard to talk about this movie and analyze it really without talking about the ending. Now, that's something that some of these movies, especially like this one and Humans, sometimes when people are watching like a family drama, they might be their wheels may be turning in their head, thinking, "What's going on? What's this movie about?" But like this movie and Humans, they're both character studies in a way, and they're character studies about these families during the Thanksgiving holiday, and you find a lot about them. Specifically this Ice Storm. The Ice Storm has like this. We're going to talk about the ending in a bit, but something happens here that's going to change everyone's lives in this film forever. This is a Criterion release, and by the way, I was able to save the sticker on this one, but this is a Criterion Blu-ray release. They're probably, now that I've bought the Blu-ray, they're probably going to come out with a 4K upgrade of this, and that's kind of my luck on these sort of things. But more than likely, I'm not going to upgrade it. This is a good transfer here, and it is done in 2K and not 4K. So maybe they won't do a 4K, but it also has the director approved with a signature by Ang Lee and all that. So the Criterion Collection is kind of a posh label. Often the films that it puts out are considered to be artsy or kind of above some of the others. Is it better than these other ones like Home for the Holidays or Humans? It's not better than Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, I'll tell you that much. And it's also not better than Thanksgiving, which probably should have won an Oscar. I'm just kidding on that, but it's an awesome slasher film. But it probably is better than these two. But those two are also well done. But this one's based on a novel by Rick Moody, who apparently won some awards, and a lot of people really dug the novel. And it follows the same story about these two families on Thanksgiving. They're neighbors. They live beside each other, and there's kind of walking distance between this. So this takes place in 1973, and it's kind of dealing with the things going on at that time, and it does a good job of capturing, like they're watching like Nixon on TV and things of that nature. Like Kevin Kline plays like the dad, but Christy Ricci plays his daughter, and she's watching Nixon on the TV, and she's got some political opinion. Her character is probably like 14 or 15 years old, I'm thinking, because she's not driving. And her brother, played by Tobey Maguire, is 16. But there's really, in the novel, they have four narrators, four different characters narrate the film, and this not narrate the novel. In the film, there's only one narrator, Tobey Maguire's character. Now, it kind of works, but Tobey Maguire's character is not always involved with everything that's going on because he's off at school. He comes back for Thanksgiving dinner, but then he goes back to school and then back again for the ending. But he's in the book they would have to have the other narrators in order to understand other parts of the stories. I'm not sure who the other narrators are. I would assume Kevin Kline's character is one of them. Maybe the mom and Christy Ricci's character. But Joan Allen plays the mother here, and she's quite radiant in the first half of the film, and she's very very good throughout this film. I think like really. Really the ensemble of this film is terrific. It also co-stars Elijah Wood as Christy Ricci's kind of the guy that she kind of likes and his brother, but she's kind of got a thing going with him and his brother, which is kind of odd. And it's kind of uncomfortable because they are fairly young kids and they're underage, and there's some oddness, like sexual stuff going on between them in the film. When I first saw this film, it's a 1997 film. When I first saw it, it was probably 98 or 99 or something like that. So I was closer to the character's age that Tobey Maguire plays, even though I'm closer in age to Christy Ricci and Elijah Wood, but they must have made this movie, and then they're playing the characters are younger than they actually are, and of course they made it like a year before. But even when I first saw it, I thought it was uncomfortable. Just it kind of works, but uncomfortable the sexual stuff going on between the kids. Even the stuff between Tobey Maguire, everything in this movie, a lot of it has to do with sexual encounters. Now, there was a sexual revolution apparently going on in the 70s, early 70s, mid 70s. So, but it deals a lot with that sort of thing. Now, Kevin Kline's character is having an affair with the neighbor's wife, played by Sigourney Weaver. The neighbor is played by Jamie Sheridan. Now, Jamie Sheridan, if you've ever seen the original miniseries of The Stand, he played Randall Flagg in that. And he had like a glorious mullet in that. It was hilarious. But he played like the main bad guy, who was kind of Stephen King's biggest bad guy, he appears in a lot of different Stephen King stories. But here he plays a very likable character, the dad of Elijah Wood's character and the husband of Sigourney Weaver. But Kevin Kline's character is having an affair with Sigourney Weaver, and so it kind of makes the characters somewhat unlikable, the stuff that they're doing. But it is a character study, and it has some interesting things to say by the end of it. And by the end of it, everyone learns somewhat of a lesson. And I don't know where it's going to go exactly from there, but I do have some ideas about where it could go after the end of the film. So Joan Allen's character is the wife of Kevin Kline's, and she's starting to suspect there's an affair going on. He's not very good at covering it up, and it's just kind of a hard thing to cover up anyway, but she's starting to suspect it, and she's trying to not come out and confront him about it, but it's having like a psychological effect on her. And in fact, at one point she talks to like a preacher guy in town, and he talks to her about riding a bike, and so she decides to try to ride a bike, which she does, and she does okay. And then she goes into town, and then she decides to try to steal some makeup because her and Kevin Kline's character seem to be both going through these midlife crises, and so she gets called for that. But I don't think they call the cops or anything like that. But there's definitely psychological stuff going on with that character as a reaction to not dealing with her knowing that her husband's having an affair. So eventually in the film, there's an ice storm coming, and everyone kind of knows about it, but the characters in this film make some very bad decisions about the ice storm in general, because it's, for anyone who's ever dealt with ice on the road in situations like this, that it's very dangerous. Electrical lines can get heavy because of ice falling, which happens in the film. Electrical lines can get heavy, like the roads are slick, you can't drive on ice, and so they make some bad decisions. Like the characters, like Kevin Kline and Joan Allen's character and Sigourney Weaver and her husband all go to this party. I'm not sure how far away it is, but it's driving distance. But they have to go to this big party at this house where they're having like an odd key thing going on, where like it's like a swinger sort of thing going on at the party, which they don't know about until they get there. But there's some talk about it earlier in the film, kind of establishing that. So what it is they put the keys in this bucket, and at the end of the night, they have the husbands and the wives on opposite sides of the room, and they all and say the wife would go and take out a key without looking, and whoever's key it is, they end up going and sleeping with that person. So it's kind of like spin the bottle, just like it's an adult version of spin the bottle. So that's one thing that's going on. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. But also, what's worse is they leave the kids at home, like Elijah Wood's character and his brother and Christy Ricci. And Elijah Wood's character is he's kind of he's a really smart kid, but he's also very ridiculous, and he thinks he's going to go out in the ice storm and play. And his brother's like, "What are you doing? You know, you don't go out in the ice storm." And so he goes out to play in the ice storm, which is a horrible decision. But Christy Ricci also makes a bad decision of going from her house to the neighbors, even though it's not that far. But it's very dangerous to be out in an ice storm, and really they should have not gone out. Or if they're going to a party during the ice storm, they should have just stayed at the party instead of trying to drive later. But so Christy Ricci walks over there, and of course Elijah Wood's not there. He's out playing in the ice. But instead of his brother's there, so she starts hanging out with him, and things go in as a direction that you might think with kids that age, and yeah, so it gets a little uncomfortable with that. But also, meanwhile, Tobey Maguire's also made a bad decision. He's gone back to town, back to his school, hang out with a character played by Katie Holmes. I think her name's Libbets or something. Everyone's like, "What's her name, Libbets?" And David Krumholtz plays his roommate, and he's over there with her. He thinks he's going to go hang out with Libbets. But he gets there and his roommate's there hanging out with her instead. So so what he decides to do, which is a very very stupid thing. He finds some pills, some kind of sleeping pills, and he gets them both. He's trying to get David Krumholtz's character to take them, which he does, thinking it's like some kind of weird pill. But then she thinks she's into it too, and she takes one too, and so they end up both passing out. And so he leaves them there just passed out. But when he's coming back on the train, of course, the ice storm happens and the train gets stuck in the ice storm. So back at the key thing, something odd happens. One of the guys at the party comes there without a wife. So there's an uneven amount of keys, but it ends up being okay because at the end of that, now Kevin Kline's character is really hung up on Sigourney Weaver's character. He's been having an affair with her, and she's participating in this key thing. And I guess he's hoping that she's going to pick his keys, but she picks someone else's, and he about loses his mind. He stands up, and then he's drank a little too much. He drank a lot too much, and he can hardly stand. He falls on the floor. And at that point, Sigourney Weaver's husband realizes that they're the ones having an affair, and so it kind of clicks between him and, of course, Joan Allen's character already thinks this, and she probably pretty much knows it. She just hasn't really, but at this point it becomes very obvious. But since there's an extra guy there who doesn't bring his wife, there's ends up being an odd number person, which works out because Kevin Kline's character is too drunk to participate. He ends up going into the bathroom and probably throwing up. So it ends up with Joan Allen's character ends up with Sigourney Weaver's husband's character. They're the last two, and so it's kind of like he's a really nice guy, but he kind of doesn't want to do anything. But she's kind of gotten to the point where she's just fed up with the bullshit from Kevin Kline's character and his secret affair. And so they go out to the car and they have a very uncomfortable sex scene out in the car but then after that she gets him to try to drive her back to the house, which they can't drive because of the ice, and they slide off the road. But luckily they don't have too bad of a wreck. Now, and this is the devastating part of the film, and it works really well. And it actually, the first time I watched it, I thought it was messed up. I think because I have a son now, it struck me differently than it did the first time I watched it. Now, the first time I watched it, I did think it was sad, but at the same time, this isn't when when you're watching a film like, say, Thanksgiving, and people will get killed all over the place. It's like, woo, it's a slasher. You don't take it to heart. But only one person dies in this film, but it's enough to leave an impact, and just the way that it happens. So here we go with the spoilers, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit more after that. So the character that dies is Elijah Wood's character. He's probably a 14 or 15-year-old boy. He's out playing in the ice storm like an idiot, being a real fool. He's walking back, and he's holding on to this guardrail This electrical wire comes undone. Of course, the ice making it heavy. It comes undone. It comes down, hits the guardrail, and then it electrocutes him, and he dies. He slides down the road dead. Now, Kevin Kline's character wakes up, still probably partially drunk in the morning. He's driving back to his house, and then he comes across the body laying on the road, and very devastating. Now he had a lot of conflict with Elijah Wood's character. He called his daughter at one point. They were like making out or even worse, and he walks in on him and he catches him and he tells him off, and he doesn't care that he's pretty chill with his daughter after that, but he definitely confronts his character. But he finds him on the ground dead, and he carries him back to his dad's house, and then his dad's there with Kevin Kline's wife and also Christy Ricci's there and Elijah Wood's brother, and then it's like that moment when he brings him back and he has to give Jamie Sheridan's character's dead son back to him and try to explain what happened. It's such a powerful moment, and it really affects everybody. And it's such a powerful scene, and it's a very devastating, emotional scene, and it hit me differently this time than the last time I watched it. Following that, there is a scene. This scene actually shows it very early in the film, which not realizing that it was a flash forward type of scene. Tobey Maguire's character, the bus comes back, and then they go. Kevin Kline, his wife, and Christy Ricci's character. Christina Ricci's character, they're all waiting for him at the bus. Waiting for him at the train station, and he gets off, and it's a very powerful scene that shows earlier that you don't realize that's a later scene until it happens again. Well, so it's a very powerful moment, and so Tobey Maguire comes out, and it's just, if you think about Elijah Wood, the other guy's son is dead, so their son is still alive, and so there's like this. Just that kind of idea. And also you can tell from what happens with these characters, this has affected them in a way that they're going to maybe make some different decisions with their life going forward, hopefully more carefully, and maybe even like start to treat each other more like a family and less about breaking the family apart. But it does seem to be, the film in general seems to be about families breaking apart, but can they come back together is the question. And I do see, to myself, even though it's not spelled out, I do see some slight optimism at the ending. In the way that it's written, Kevin Kline's, like, their families are really the main family, but their kids don't die. The other family's kids die, so it would be more. I think the fact that their kids don't die, it brings some optimism to it, because then maybe they can appreciate their kids being alive. But it's also a feeling of guilt because the other family's kid has died and theirs didn't. But hopefully it's something here where the characters moving forward can appreciate the family more. I really like this film. I liked it better on this watch than the first watch. It is a hard film to watch, because especially if you know about the ending, which I knew about it beforehand. But it is a devastating ending, but it's also very powerful, and it's what really makes the film. I'm going to give the film itself 4 stars. I think it's terrifically done. Now, the transfer here, now I'm going to read a little bit really quick about the transfer. I'm going to paraphrase it. But the transfer is, like say, they're probably going to have a 4K better version of this, but I thought it looked pretty good for the most part. Here's it. It's presented in its original aspect ratio of 185:1, which the black bars on the top and the bottom are normal. So it's a 2K resolution from a 35mm inner positive and color corrected. Thousands of instances of dirt, debris, scratches, splices, warps, jitter, and flicker were manually removed. So clearly there's digital cleanup. For those who don't like the cleanup stuff, it's there, and it looks good. So you're not seeing all that really rough, like, old film stuff there. They've cleaned it up, and with that type of stuff happens over time. It's not originally in the film, but film over time will start to degenerate and look shitty, and so sometimes some people would rather be more pure and keep some of that stuff in there, because once you start digitally correcting it, it will remove detail, like fine detail from the faces and so forth. I'm going to give Criterion a 4-star on this as well. So anyway, let me know what you think about this movie, and I hope everyone's going to have a happy Thanksgiving. And if you haven't done so already, if you go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'm Dave Watkins. Thanks for watching.